Hello class, hope you are all doing well. I just want to talk to you about the argumentation strategy today. Now, the argumentation strategy is going to seem a lot like the persuasion strategy, and it may actually appear to you that while I'm reading you this, I'm repeating a lot of what I've already said in previous lectures. This is because there really isn't a huge difference between persuasion and argumentation. It's really just about the approach. In persuasion, you're trying very hard to convince your reader and to get them to accept your point of view. In argumentation, you're really just presenting your point of view and fortifying it the best you can. So it's really about approach and intention. Do you want to convince people, or do you want to try to make the best claim to the truth that you possibly can and not really worry about persuading people necessarily, although you can, but you really just want to make sure that you fortify an argument and you present something clear and discernible. So I'm just going to read over the chapter for you, and then once we're done reading over the chapter, we'll read over most of the chapter. Once we're done reading over it, I would like to show you how to write a argumentative thesis and topic sentences using the formula that I gave you in one of the previous videos. That's problem, solution, and so what. And we will use Galileo and figure out how to create a thesis and topic sentences based on research. So hopefully by the end of this lecture, you will have some idea of how to formulate your argumentative essay. Okay, so overview. Argumentation allows a writer to present a logical and debatable viewpoint, position, or belief. Argumentation writing is part of a larger debate or conversation, and the writer uses this strategy to take a stand. Argumentation is effective for persuasion because writers need to incorporate evidence in the form of research, experience, statistics, etc. If you want to change your reader's opinion, defend your viewpoint, convince your readers that your ideas are valid, or even question someone else's stance on an issue, the argumentative strategy is essential. While argumentation can provide structure for an essay, it can also appear in an essay that does not use the argumentation strategy as its main strategy. For instance, you may find multiple arguments supported with evidence in a cause and effect or exemplification essay's body paragraph to help illustrate the writer's argument. Skills learned in argumentation writing help build a strong foundation for presenting and defending ideas or debates. The argumentation strategy helps writers produce effective writing that is professional or academic in tone when used successfully. An essay that uses argumentation as its main strategy should be logically organized, which can be in order of increasing complexity, order of importance, or any other method that is appropriate for your topic. Many types of common argumentation writing include personal essays, informative essays, or persuasive essays. Now, in the case of the assignment, please don't do anything personal. In fact, you should try to weed out your persona from the argumentative essay because you want to remain objective. You also want to avoid first-person pronouns by the time you get to the second essay. Argumentation Organization. Often the terms argumentation and persuasion are used interchangeably, but they do not mean the exact same thing. Persuasion writing seeks to change readers' beliefs or perform a specific action. Argumentation, however, is a logical appeal that demonstrates the writer's belief through evidence that leads to an effective conclusion. In argumentation, you seek to establish that your viewpoint is important, but you aren't always trying to change someone else's viewpoint. When writing using the argumentation strategy, your topic or viewpoint should be specific enough to be supported by research and logic. Most writers will have a particular opinion about any claim, so those opinions shape the writer's viewpoint of the overall argument. The writer's opinions also influence the types of evidence chosen for the essay. Some common methods of organizing an argumentative essay include chronological organization, order of increasing complexity, order of importance, etc. Once you know what the point you are trying to make in your argumentative essay is, compose a working thesis that states the overall main idea. The working thesis acts as your belief's reason for existence. The reason they are worth sharing. If your evidence is dull or expected, your reader may ask, what is the point of this? Know your reasons for choosing your evidence before you start. All right, pathos, logos, and ethos. We've already been over this, but when writing a persuasive or argumentative essay, you may appear to readers in three ways: emotional, logical, and ethical. Persuasive essays tend to only focus on one type of appeal, while argumentation incorporates multiple appeals. Emotional appeals are referred to as pathos, which allows writers to tap into evidence that inspire emotional reactions in readers, One of the most effective methods for using pathos is through words that have connotative or secondary meanings. Not every word and synonym have the exact same meaning, so make sure you're choosing effective words, terms, and concepts that spark the emotion your writing speaks to inspire. Logos is a logical appeal to readers. Using this method for persuasion depends on your reader's intelligence as well as your own. You should choose evidence that demonstrates your own credibility with the topic. Also, consider how you may incorporate facts, statistics, examples, precedents, authority, and deductive/inductive reasoning into your writing. Ethical appeals, or ethos, involves convincing your readers that you are trustworthy and intelligent in relation to your topic. This type of appeal may be difficult, as you must establish your credibility and trustworthiness. Evidence when using ethos tend to be a personal experience and extensive research into the subject. Do not use personal experience in the second essay. I know they say you can, and there are situations where you could, but anecdotal evidence is the worst kind of evidence, and I've explained this before. But like, just because something happened to you doesn't mean that it is a common thing to happen or that it is indicative of some larger trend. So if you use personal evidence, it's like, this happened to me and therefore this must be true. That's not exactly right. You will want to relay more on your research rather than your personal connections to the topic. Okay, there, they qualify it with that statement. That's important. Focus on the research. If you have personal connections for my essay, leave them out. Leave them out. Don't mention yourself. Don't mention your personal connections, personal opinions, anything like that. Because, like I said, anecdotal evidence is the least strong of all of the types of evidence. All of your claims in your argumentation essay need to be supported with evidence. If you only make generalizations, you undermine your own argument. That's true. And there are a lot of generalizations that people make all the time. Think about what types of evidence you need in order to achieve your essay's goal. Appeals using pathos, logos, and pathos are effective. I think she meant ethos. But usually we rely mostly on logos or reason in your essays. Evidence that falls under logos include facts, statistics, and expert opinions. Think about evidence in terms of facts or opinions. Most of your readers will generally agree with facts. They can be proven independently, but opinions often accompany facts. Opinions are beliefs not proven by facts, and they are not as effective for your argument. Opinions work best when they come from credible and reliable sources. These sources may be experts in the field or subject. Expert opinions are more convincing and effective in your argument in comparison to a person who has limited knowledge of the subject. Your own personal opinions may not be used as evidence. Why would you say that? No, don't do that. But keep in mind that the most effective opinions are credible and convincing, which usually come from an expert. Yeah, you're not an expert, so your opinion is not really important. I'm sorry, I don't mean to seem like I disagree too much with what is written, but you know, this is the thing with English, guys, is that every teacher is different and they have different approaches and different takes on it. It's not like physics where there's one right way to do things. You know, in English and composition, you kind of have a lot of tools at your disposal, and there are lots of different ways you can use those tools. It is my personal belief that you should leave your personal experiences and anecdotes out of the argumentative essay. The evidence that you rely on should come from a range of sources. You wouldn't want to use only one source for your evidence, as you would not be considering the subject or viewpoint as a whole, and your argument may fall apart. Your evidence shouldn't be based on only one successful source that supports your opinion. Make sure that you have a variety of supporting sources. Very important. Your argumentation writing should have enough facts, opinions, etc. to support your claim. There isn't always a specific number of sources that you need to use unless assigned by your instructor, so the amount of evidence needed is dependent on the length and complexity of your argument. For essay 2, it is minimum 2 sources required, but I recommend that you use 1 per paragraph, and you can use more. It is also helpful to research the opposing viewpoint to your essay. If your argumentation essay can address most common or obvious objections, your argument will become more effective. You can denounce or refute opposing ideas by showing they are invalid, unfair, or inaccurate. If the opposing side has particularly strong evidence to support it, concede that the opposing side is valid, but that it has its limitations. Your essay should then focus on how your claims do not have the same limitations. So this is important. If you posit the opposing viewpoint, you must refute it. Do not have this thing where you see it both ways, because then your essay becomes forked and it's like you seem indecisive, you seem like a flip-flop, you know? So if you're going to encounter the other side, that's fine, but you're going to want to make sure that you refute it as well. So in deciding on your evidence, make sure each piece passes the following criteria: And this is the crap test. So if you want to go and review that video, you can. I'm just going to read over it briefly. I'm not going to read it entirely. I'm just going to mention them so they're fresh in your mind. Currency, right? How close to the present moment is it? Because it needs to be pretty current. Relevant, is it really relevant to your source, or is it only peripherally relevant, or is it not relevant at all? Authority, who wrote it? Are they credible? Does this come from a pedigreed expert or like a blog page from Infowars.com, right? So authority, who is this? Accuracy, is this an accurate piece? Is this something with clear commitment to the current evidence and staying valid in terms of the academic consensus that exists? So make sure the source references other sources and research. Also, appropriate use of grammar and syntax is helpful. And then purpose, why does this source exist? Some sources exist for bad reasons, for questionable motives and stuff like that. So that's a big thing. All right, deductive and inductive reasoning. When you're using the argumentation strategy, you can transition from evidence to analysis in two ways: deductive and inductive reasoning. Most argumentation essays use a mixture of both reasonings. Deductive reasoning is what most people consider when focusing on logical appeals. Using deductive reasoning allows you to move from evidence to assumptions to a specific conclusion. Essentially, deductive thinking follows the idea that if all evidence in the argument is true, the conclusion must be true as well. When using deduction reasoning from your argument, you have a basic form: a major premise, general statement or claim; a minor premise, more specific evidence; and a conclusion, your explanation and analysis of the evidence. Inductive reasoning allows you to draw more general conclusions than deductive reasoning. You will move from individual pieces of evidence to a general conclusion that does not follow the strict form of the specific conclusion that deductive thinking produces. What this means is that the conclusion fits all of the presented evidence better than all the other conclusions. Because inductive reasoning does not follow the strict form of deductive reasoning, you first have a question or claim that you're focusing on. You present your evidence and then your conclusion, or explanation and analysis. It is made of statements about your initial question or claim based on what you do know, the evidence. Okay, so you have two ways of moving to analysis. Fallacies. One of the most common errors in argumentative writing is a fallacy, which is a flaw in your logic or reasoning. Fallacies undermine your arguments. Common fallacies include assuming a statement is true, but it actually requires proof; using analogies as evidence; personal attacks; generalization of evidence, or jumping to conclusions; assuming there is a right or wrong answer when there are many; diversions from the main argument; shifting meanings or understandings in terms of concept without cause; assuming the opposing viewpoint is invalid because it is different; using famous people as sources instead of credible experts; misleading statistics; assuming that two events that occurred near the same time indicate a relationship; and skipping steps in logic that produces a statement that does not logically follow the preceding one. There are also tons of other fallacies. If you want to look fallacies up, I highly recommend it, because if you learn the fallacies, you become a better rhetorician overall, especially when you communicate with people that use fallacies a lot. Because if you use a fallacy, believe it or not, you've lost the plot. Transitions. Okay. Like the other chapters, we have transitions that can be used in argumentation writing. They are accordingly, first, second, third. In conclusion, on the other hand, all in all, for example, in other words, therefore. Let's see if the table continues. Yes. As a result, furthermore, nevertheless, thus, because, however, nonetheless, to be sure, finally, in addition, on the one hand, and yet. So those are transitions. Make sure you use transitions because they really, really help with sentence flow. Argumentation paragraph writing. Argumentation paragraph assignments allow for practice of argumentation on a smaller scale than an essay. An argumentation paragraph should always include an effective topic sentence, multiple pieces of evidence, analysis, and a concluding sentence. The evidence chosen for a paragraph assignment should be fairly short but effective. An argumentation paragraph, while providing specific pieces of evidence, should make sure to emphasize the point of the paragraph as a whole. So the topic sentence should present a claim, very important, or point about a topic, or why that topic is important to the writer. You can follow that formula, problem, solution, so what, on a sort of micro scale when you get to the body paragraphs. This topic sentence cannot be a quote or summary of the evidence. Lots of people just start off with a sentence with a quote in it or a citation. If you do that, you've lost the plot. For argumentation writing, topic sentence must clearly state your stance on the issue or topic. Then you follow with your argument, and usually that involves including evidence. So make sure you have a lead-in statement for quotes, such as, according to one scholar, and then you provide a quote that is credible, that evidences the claim that you've made, okay? Once you do that, you close the quotation and you include parenthetical citations. A lot of people on the first essay, they use secondary sources and they don't include citations, and they get a big deduction for that. And I try to tell you, you gotta focus on the MLA. You gotta get the quotes and the citations down. Okay, so once you have the evidence quoted and cited, you have your analysis. So after your evidence, the paragraph should explain how it helps prove or support the topic sentence. This requires critical thinking. And remember, you have to analyze it. Don't let the reader assume that they know what the evidence means. Lead the horse to water, so to speak. Explain the bloody knife. That's the example I always use. You walk into a room, there's a bloody knife on the table. What happened? Well, we know what might have happened, what probably happened, what's safe to assume happened, but we don't know what actually happened until someone tells us. And that's the case with evidence in your essays as well. Then you want a concluding sentence that usually functions as a way to close out the paragraph or transition to a new paragraph. Some of you are getting really good at that, so keep it up. Argumentation essay structure. The structure of an argumentative essay should follow a basic essay structure, but depending on the types of evidence, it allows for some creativity. If any specific piece of evidence happened to you, then you do not do this. Don't use any specific evidence that happened to you. I don't know why they're recommending that you do that. It doesn't make sense. Okay, when writing, consider your topic, your opinions, possible transitions, yada, yada. And we have the introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Very basic stuff, right? Then some stuff on pre-writing and making an outline, which if that's your thing, you can do. I recommend, if you're like the kind of person that benefits from an outline, you should do one. Outlines are important because the essay structure is important. If the right thing is not in the right place, like if the thesis statement is in the wrong place or the body paragraphs don't have topic sentences in the right place, all that stuff, then it really does affect the grade that you get. So a lot of times people making an outline where they outline their thesis and their topic sentences and the evidence they're going to use, and they do it very meticulously, it can be very helpful. So if that's something you want to do, then do it. Also, please don't skip the revising step. I know that a lot of you guys, you get to 11:45 and your palms start sweating and you're trying to get the essay in as soon as possible. The problem with that is that, you know, if you wait till the last minute, you're going to have all of these problems. And honestly, you know, a lot of times if you had just taken the 5 points that it would have been for a day late so that you could sit there and correct all the problems, you'd actually end up with more points. So don't panic in that situation. Make sure you revise and edit. And there are some instructions in this document. Of course, you're going to want to read this on your own time. I'm not going to talk too much about revising and editing, but you need to do it. You need to go through and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. If you want to know the kinds of things that you personally should look for, go ahead and check out my comments on Essay 1. If you can see yours, of course, and if you can, then you can use those comments to inform your approach to editing and revising. What are the things that I do often that I need to fix? For most people from Essay 1 to 2, it's MLA formatting and the inclusion of topic sentences. Those are the two things that I see all the time in Essay 1 that really cause a problem for students. I don't know what it is about MLA. It is really meticulous and students kind of don't take it seriously. And it's worth 20 points of the final grade according to the rubric. So that can be a huge deduction if you don't calculate it properly. Okay, so let's see. What we're going to do now, I'm going to share my screen with you. And what we're going to do, is check out Blackboard here, okay, making sure that's working. All right, so to get to Galileo, we go over here. Here's the link on the left, and this is going to pull up our search. Now I'm going to do an advanced search. Okay, so I started thinking about some stuff, like what's a good example topic for for the argumentative essay? What's a topic that I could use that will show how to do the argumentative essay the way that I want it to be done? And so I started thinking about the issue of overfishing. Okay, that means taking too many fish out of our oceans. So overfishing is a big problem, and depending on which expert you're citing, we may run out of fish in a fairly short period of time in the world's oceans if we don't do something, of course, about overfishing. So overfishing is my problem. If I do problem, solution, so what? I pick a problem. This is a environmental problem that I want to fix, or I want to see fixed. So then if I know my problem, I have to come up with solutions. So how do I come up with solutions? Well, I have to do research first. Okay, now the argumentation essay said, you know, your opinions are going to shape your conclusions and stuff, and that's true. But you should base your opinions off of research, because if there is no research to validate your opinion, then you're not going to do well on the essay anyway, because you need that research to reinforce your ideas. So if you don't have it, it's not a good thing. So let's type in overfishing and see what we get. I should have done the advanced searches and stuff, but it's okay. We'll just take it. You can screen for PDF full text, academic sources, scholarly sources, etc. But this is actually good because see this text right here? This is a ebook, PDF ebook about overfishing as a broad topic. And when we have a broad source like this that's, you know, 16 chapters long and full of all kinds of information that's relatively current, 10 years ago, so it could be more current, but I think it'll still work. This is great because what we can do here is we can use this text to generate search terms that we can use to find evidence. Okay, so search terms mean, how do you do research? You got to come up with a list of terms that are relevant to your topic that you can search on Galileo that's going to get yields. If you don't get yields on a certain term that's related to the subject, then you need to come up with other terms that are related to the subject, so that you can come up with a body of research for your essay. So things, just looking through the table of contents here, what are some terms we could use? We've already used overfishing, but here's some stuff about fisheries, right? We got fisheries, we got hatcheries. There's a specific mention of the Canadian cod. I bet that would be useful if you wanted to illustrate the importance of managing overfishing, right? Because that was probably a species that was overhunted, and I bet if you searched the Canadian cod in Galileo, you would yield some specific information that's very useful. Also, you could get some information from this source since they have a whole chapter on it. Recovery of fisheries. Can fish stocks recover from overfishing? So fish stocks, that's important. How important is habitat to fish populations? Let's see, growth of overfishing, recreational and commercial fisheries. Okay, what is an example of a well-managed fishery? Let's see, is overfishing only a biological problem? Economic overfishing, benefits of IFQs. What is an IFQ? Individual fisherman quota. See, that's perfect, because that's some jargon. That is some jargon that we probably wouldn't have access to if we didn't have an encyclopedic source like this that just like lays out the total problem of overfishing. If you can find a source like this, you're in the money. Like, this is really good because it can tell you all kinds of stuff. And if you look down here, like over here on the left, you can see trawling. There's some stuff about trawling. That's like using nets that drag the bottom of the sea. And there's some stuff about marine protected areas. Okay, so let's see what they say about the quotas again. Hold on. Individual fishing quota, IFQ. Was that what it's called? Yeah, IFQ. So 5, economic overfishing. IFQs. Okay. If an IFQ. Okay. So an IFQ is a quota that they put, so you can only get a certain amount of fish. So if you can only get a certain amount of fish, that means that you want to get the best fish possible in order to meet the quota, so you'll be more selective about which fish you take, and more fish will endure. Let's see. Most fisheries suffer from too many boats chasing too fish. Through those sales, ITQs are reducing the size of the fishing fleet. Okay, sounds like this is a solution, right? Individual fishing quotas. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pull up Microsoft Word. Okay. Problem, solution, so what? Okay. Now the problem is going to be overfishing. Okay. The solution, we know what we need is more individual fishing quotas, marine protected areas, and restrictions on trawling. Now we got those as 3 solutions based on that one text that we found. You may have to do more digging than that. Remember, the best sources that you can find are scholarly journals, sources from a scholarly journal, which you can then use because they are credible. Okay. So the problem is overfishing. Those are the solutions. What is the so what? Replenishing the health of the oceans for future generations. Okay, so now we're going to take those 3 and we're going to condense into a sentence that's going to serve as our thesis statement. Due to the extreme problem of overfishing threatening ocean health, the international community should impose more individual fishing quotas, create more marine protected areas. And a marine protected area is like an area of the ocean that you can't fish in. And a lot of times they pick like areas where certain fish breed and replicate commonly, like they have like breeding grounds and stuff, or just, and what that does is those fish are allowed to reproduce without being bothered by fishermen, and it actually increases the number of fish in the surrounding areas too, because the fish leave the MPA into the other parts of the ocean, and so the fish populations stay higher. Could create more marine protected areas and implement stricter trawling restrictions so that future generation can enjoy the bounty of a healthy sea. Okay, the only problem I have is it's a little bit wordy, but when you're juggling a lot of stuff in the argumentation strategy, that's normal, okay? Wordiness is a problem. It's not the biggest problem that can arise. So, okay, due to the extreme problem of overfishing, threatening ocean health, the international community should impose more individual fishing quotas, create more marine protected areas, and implement stricter trawling restrictions so that future generations can enjoy the bounty of a healthy sea. Now what we do is we go back to Galileo. We can use that textbook source to find some other stuff. To find some of the information we need. But remember, there's a 2-source minimum, and really more sources could help you. So what we'll do is we'll go back, and now we have that list of search terms, right? So now we're going to type in marine protected area, all right? And we're going to do full text scholarly journal over here on the left. And that's going to help us somewhat. All right, so we're going to type in marine protected area, and we're going to hit search. Boom. Okay, lots of stuff on MPAs, and of course you'll have to pilfer through this yourself. Remember, it's got to be something that you can understand and that's relevant. It's got to pass the CRAP test. Most of this stuff will pass the CRAP test in terms of authority, because most of the stuff is written by academics. But what you can do to help even further is you can go up here and say, well, where's the peer review check? Oh, that's in the advanced search. So you can click for peer review in the advanced search, and that even strengthens the search that you're going to get. So you're going to have to dig through this stuff. I'm not going to spend. Here's weaknesses and strengths in marine protected areas in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So we can look at this to get an idea of what the values and stuff are marine protected areas. Here's a good one. Analysis of fish population size distribution confirms cessations of fishing in marine protected areas. So this means that we know the MPAs are working and that they do work because there are more fish, and we know that they're not being fished and stuff. And of course, in order to reinforce this, it would have to be researched. So you could do research there. You got to dig through all these articles. That's your job, though, right? And the next thing that we're going to do is use another search term. So we have individual fishing quota. Let's see what we get from that. Okay, so we got some sources on individual fishing quota. Okay, so here's some stuff about the Gulf of Mexico red snapper. What's the fishing quota doing for that? Fleet restriction, incentive effective joint and several liability. That's not good. How does species association affects me? Okay, see, some of these are going to be miss. Evidence for rapid avoidance of rockfish habitat under reduced quota and comprehensive. Okay. The economic effects of catch. So you could use economic effects to help make your argument. If there are economic benefits to it as well, that could help. Alaska halibut captains' attitudes. Oh, are IFQs popular? Implementation challenges for quota, set-asides, individual. Okay, so we're finding some hits here. You might have to dig, but at least what we did is we got some good searches. And of course, remember that original text had some information about IFQs as well that you could use. You really only need 2 sources, which is probably too few. I would say 1 per paragraph is the best. So really, we're looking for 2 extra sources. We got lots of search terms. We got one for marine protected areas. We can get one for IFQ. If that doesn't work, we can type in trawling, see what comes up, right? But once we have our 3 pieces of evidence, then we go back to our thing, and what we do is we break our thesis down into topic sentences. So one topic sentence is going to focus on IFQs, one MPAs, and the other one trawling restrictions. And they're going to follow the same thing, problem, solution, so what, but they're only going to focus on that one specific issue as the solution. And so that is how we create our topic sentences that go at the start of each body paragraph. Then we're going to place the evidence that we find from our sources, and we're going to analyze the evidence in our own voice and explain the bloody knife. We're going to provide a transition or concluding sentence to each of our body paragraphs. We're going to lather, rinse, and repeat times. We're going to write a conclusion. Of course, our introduction followed hook, line, and sinker, same thing as the first essay. And that, folks, is how you do it. I don't have to sit here and hash it out for you. I think you can see where we're going with this. It's all very formulaic, and everything has a right place. So if you have any questions or concerns about what's expected, the main thing is for you to find a topic, do some preliminary research, figure out your problem, solution, so what for your thesis statement, and then begin to break that down into topic sentences and plug in your evidence. And you're well on your way to producing a strong essay 2. Remember, MLA format, don't shirk it. Very important for essay 2. If you don't include those quotes and citations, you're going to get a plagiarism violation and you're going to have a hard time. So please be careful, be very careful. Make sure every source that you use is quoted and cited correctly. If you use any information from any outside source whatsoever, it must be cited in your essay using a parenthetical citation, okay? If you do not have parenthetical citations in your essay for essay 2, you will get a plagiarism violation and a 0. This is firm. I'm not shaking on this. This is not to be overly punitive, but I have to teach you the standards of academic credibility. So make sure you adhere to them. If you're confused about it, go back and watch my plagiarism video. Reach out to me with any questions. And of course, have an excellent week, and I'll see you next time.